Hi guys, my name is Johnny El-Rady. I'm an instructor 3 in the Department of CMMB, and this is my STEER SOS-STEM presentation. So in this presentation, I'm frankly not going to show you any cool gadgets. I'm not going to introduce you to new platforms. I'm certainly not going to show you, exciting videos. What I'm trying to do is humbly share with you a few techniques that have helped me transition to online teaching, and then frankly have also improved my teaching. So there's going to be 3 points. I'm going to talk about assessing attendance and participation, administering online exams, and then also making novel use of office hours. And to do that, I'm going to mimic one of my regular lectures. We're going to use clickers. There's going to be some history, quotes, reference to my Lebanese heritage. That's very important. Movie book recommendations, a joke or two, lots of images, and very little substance. The courses I'm going to highlight are, well, at least these are the courses that I was teaching in the spring. Human genetics, which is an upper level course for majors and actually taken by lots of non-majors. And it is cross-listed at the undergraduate and graduate level. There was about 90 students, 80 in the undergraduate and then 10 in the graduate. Medical mycology is also double listed. This was a relatively smaller class. It had only about 45 students, I think 40 undergraduates and then 5 in the graduate section, and general genetics. Now this is a large enrollment class, and I've highlighted it in blue. As those of you who have taught online before, that 799 is usually the online section, and this was actually a course that was already online, but yet there was still a transition necessary, and I'll talk about that shortly. Okay, so here's the movie recommendation. If you haven't seen it, The Godfather Part 1 is obviously a classic. If you have seen it, see it again. So part 1 is the idea of, again, assessing online attendance and participation. So this is something that I've learned, having taught online before, is, the more detailed your announcements are, the better. So this brings back, good memories and then bad memories. The one, remember that they're posted earlier at the very bottom. So tomorrow's class is still on, but this was the last announcement I made before COVID, and that was the Thursday right before spring break. And then there was transitioning this course to online format, updated course syllabus, and more online lectures and attendance checks, and I'll get to that. So this was the updated syllabus, and I chose basically, rather than to update the whole thing, is just to include the highlights in blue. The changes are all indicated in blue, and whether it was the medical mycology, the human genetics, etc. So the very first one decision that we all had to make was what to do with lectures. And then my thinking was that we're already, and frankly we're still going through that, our lives have all changed, certainly those of our students, so maintaining normal lecture time wasn't going to be conducive with learning. All of our schedules have changed, so I opted for narrated PowerPoints. I was recording them, and then I will upload them, and then they can watch it or watch them at their own leisure. And this is basically, again, no fancy gadgets. It's just a PowerPoint narrated with, showing the video. And I think showing yourself on the video is important, in my case at least. So this is a lecture from medical mycology, and then you can see me on the very bottom right. I am, mimicking, I guess, a concept, and just essentially interdigitating the hands to show how Pneumocystis jirovecii can cling to pneumocytes. And then this is also important. For example, if I'm highlighting, chromosome structure, or chromosomes during meiosis or mitosis, I can actually, show markers and then, show crossing over, whatever it is. So that is something that I think that is useful. So depending on the, the lecture, depending on the course, in some cases there were, 3 mini lectures. In some cases there were 4, and in some cases even 5. And the idea was to keep, each lecture or each mini lecture to about, 15 to 20, 25 minutes maybe. Some went a little bit longer. But beyond that, I think it would be too much or too long. So, but, that was done. So the problem though is, how do you gauge, online attendance, and then how do you keep them on track if you're deciding to go asynchronous with your lectures? So rather than, go through the whole syllabus section, essentially what I did is, there was, in this course, it was El-Rady's evaluation. This was a smaller course. So, and it doesn't, I wasn't using clickers for this particular course. But I was taking attendance through other means and then engaging class participation. So basically what I did is that I decided to, for both courses, whether it was the medical mycology or the human genetics, I decided to go with a rather interesting way is that, in fact, let me just go over the actual clicker part, because that would make more sense. So for human genetics, I was also using, I was using clickers. And then for that particular course, same idea. There was a percentage of their course that was based on attendance and class participation. And to keep, this system online, I decided basically, instead of me asking them the questions, I asked them to ask me the questions. So essentially, I'm going to take attendance and participation via their uploading of multiple choice questions based on each lecture that I presented. So these were available to them early, and then they would have to use this material and then post multiple choice questions based on that. Now, this is the actual announcement in question, at least for one course. And what I decided to do is, give them a little bit of, format without going into too much micromanaging. So they had to give me, 4 choices. They had to include different parts of the chapter. They cannot use just simple words. Choices for answers, at least one of them had to basically be a full sentence. And then also, of course, show no signs of plagiarism. They have to turn it in. And this is the actual grade book. Now, of course, I have to hide, the student names and any, grades and other factors. But you can see it was, pretty good attendance throughout. This is just one screenshot from the first, 10 students. And then similarly for human genetics. Now, you probably know that, remember the color coding. Yellow means, it's a little bit higher chance of plagiarism. But in reality, it wasn't really that. It was just flagging, things at random. Okay. So, and these are some highlights. I'll just share them very quickly with you. And then you can see some students really took, time to really compose good questions, whereas others were trying to, get away with it. So, the speed grader allows me to quickly go through them, and, these would not get the full credit. But as you can see, there were some, students that really, and these are just, again, screenshots from various questions. You can see some that really went into it and developed really some good, good questions. And I felt this is one way for me to, again, gauge attendance, but also getting them involved with the material so that they don't, slack off, I guess. And then one good thing about this is that also you really don't know the material until you start composing questions, right? You never learn until you teach. So that is one way that, I've felt that attendance would be, checked, and participation. So you can see there were some very good questions throughout. Okay, so part 2, if you will, Godfather Part 2, again, a very good movie, is online exams, right? So this is taking tests in the classroom, and this is taking tests online. So I've been teaching online actually, for a decade. I taught another course, the biology of humans. And even early on, this is when I started really teaching genetics, the idea of, a camera trained on you, proctorio or otherwise, online test takers feel software is uneasy glare. The idea of privacy is paramount. So I never did that. I actually required students to take on-campus exams, even in the online course. And students who cannot make it, who don't live close enough to Tampa, can use this website. And then this website, basically they click on it and then it opens up, and then they can choose a testing center near them. They can also choose a library that can, do proctored exams, because there was a fee associated if you do a testing center. And very quickly, I was, I guess, lucky enough in a sense to have students take, exams in very many states, throughout Florida, and I'm just going to quickly go through them. So this is basically where students have taken courses, from the Northeast to the West, to the very North, to the South, Southeast, whatever, Michigan, Minnesota, Iowa, Georgia, Alabama, etc., New Jersey, Massachusetts, and even worldwide, very quickly in Mexico, the Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Chile, Peru, all over Western Europe, in Africa, Nigeria, there's only one taker in a sense, India, the Philippines, and this is the reference to my Lebanese heritage. No student has taken the course, the exam in the Middle East, but that's where Lebanon is, you can hardly see it. So anyway, so we moved to, we transitioned to online instruction. And again, the idea of proctorio and privacy issues is still there. Another issue is fairness. For a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. So I'm not going to go there. So, but basically, I'm worried about fairness. I'm worried about rigor. I need to maintain rigor. And of course, academic integrity. And so the best really way to do it, I think, is using pooled questions, and not just any pooled questions. Now, this, frankly, technique is not for the faint of heart, because it does take, time, but it ensures all three. It ensures fairness, it ensures rigor, and it minimizes at least academic dishonesty. So here's basically what I do. For each exam, this exam is 50 questions. So I look at my material. What are the learning outcomes? What am I testing them on? And I create a pool for each question. So this is the rough draft. I lost all that I did for the spring, so I'm just using the one that I used for this summer. So you can see pool 1 is this, pool 2 is this, pool 3 is this. Now I've had sections where, if this gets disseminated, this video somehow, it doesn't really compromise the test security. But these are, again, you can see all the way to 50 polls. And these are all, semi hidden, I guess. But anyway, all the way to pool 50. Okay, so I'm going to go quickly to Canvas, see if this works, and just highlight, the idea. You go to quizzes, basically, and then you go to this top right, and these are the question banks. And this, again, this is the Spring 20 course. So you can see, basically, this is exam 3, because exams 1 and 2 were done face-to-face. And in some cases, there are 4 questions. In other cases, there are 6 questions, 5 questions. And frankly, in some cases, there's only 1 question, because I feel this is a good question. And then, if you're just not familiar with pooled quizzes, basically, the software pulls 1 at random from each pool. So, and the key is that each pool has parallel questions. I'll just give you an example. So nucleotide structure, let's say, right? And these include actually images. So that's another thing that I would encourage you to do. It does take a little bit of time, and I'm hesitant to use QTIs. Now, there are some software that allow you to, create questions in bulk and import them. The problem that it will complicate the gradebook, because each time that you import something, it will populate into one column. So it gets a little bit clunky that way. So I would rather invest time into this approach. But again, you can see it's actually fairly parallel. So I'm not testing them, on nuclear structure in one student, and base pairing in another, and probability in a third one. So you get, this idea, and then you can create again, fill in the blanks, multiple fill in the blanks. I won't have time to go through this. Happy to talk to you about it if you are interested offline. Or I guess online, but in a different format. But you get the idea, right? So this is, 50 questions for exam 3, same idea, 50 questions for exam 4. And then, so. Very quickly, exam results. This is again spring 2020. You can see exam 1 and 2 are on campus, exam 3 and 4 are online. Now they had a drop grade, so a lot of them chose to to drop the last exam because they were already happy with their grade. But if you look at it, very quickly, this is again the first 15 students. Look at this, 31. In fact, let me just use the pointer option. Right, or maybe the highlighter very quickly, laser pointer. Okay, so first, exam 31, 32, 36, 41, 43, 42, 46, 40, 43, 30, 36, 41. So it wasn't really dramatically different either way. Indeed, I decided to do like a back of the envelope calculations, in a sense, a back of the Excel calculations. So this is basically what I did. I took the average of exam 1, 2 in this column and the difference with exam 3. So you can see a huge number of questions had no difference whatsoever. Some of them were off by minus 0.5 or -1, and then others were plus 0.5 or +1, etc. Okay. So this is again a very humble advice. If you don't want to use, worry about proctorio or privacy issues, give them a buffer. So the exam was 90 minutes. I gave them 95 minutes. They have no multiple attempts, of course, one question at a time. But I use a lockdown browser, and they are allowed to backtrack because you're going to get a lot of pushback if you lock the question and don't allow them to come back. Okay, so down to the very last, section, The Godfather Part 3. If you haven't seen it, don't. It's the worst of the lot. But anyway, so I use an extra credit in my online class, and the extra credit would basically to 1.5% added to their grade. They have to they have to view these 2 videos, at least one of them. And again, these are ones that I would recommend: A Genetic Odyssey, Journey of Man, and Evolution, what Darwin Never Knew. And they have to write a reflection paper about it, which is 2 pages. And this is due at the very end of the semester. Now, the problem is that this is the grade book, right? And you can see not that many students took advantage of it. In fact, the average over the last 5 years was about, or it was always videos, not necessarily these 2 videos, probably about a third of the class, if on a good day, I guess, on a good semester. So I decided basically to give them or make them an offer that they can't refuse. So this summer, what we're doing is we are doing the extra credit, but they also have to attend office hours to get them. So we've converted essentially all office hours into review sessions. And without going into a lot of details, but basically this is what we do. We're offering, the TAs are doing that. We offer a review session for every module. In fact, we offered them at 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. on that date, and they only have to attend one of them on that day to get that potential credit. And so that's 4 points. And then the other 2 points is, this is how they get the 4 points. They have to attend at least 2 to get 1 point, and then it goes up from there. They don't have to attend all sessions to get the full credit. And then I offer also review sessions, and they get them that way. Okay. And we have to maintain academic honesty, academic integrity. So we basically, test attendance. There's no way to do it via Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. So what we do, we open a Canvas quiz at the same time that the session is in, and then only for a relatively short window of time. So basically, this is the Blackboard Collaborate session, real quick. This is the student, the TA, going over lecture material for that particular module. And then this is the code word for that particular session. And this is the attendance quiz. They have to go into Canvas and then enter that code word or code words. And then we can also download, the quiz statistics. So for example, the morning session and the evening session actually have different code words. So this tells us, again, this minimizes academic dishonesty in a sense. And then you can see that there are actually far more students who attended the evening session. And this was informative for us because, you know, I gave my first review session in the morning, and I decided to give my second review session in the evening where, you know, more students could potentially attend. Now, we also maintain academic integrity by comparing the two. So we can look at Canvas, we can look at Blackboard Collaborate. Now, Blackboard Collaborate Ultra is clunky. It doesn't allow us to get a role per se. But what we could do is, you know, during the session, essentially copy and paste. So I'm just giving you a screenshot of the attendance in Blackboard Collaborate. We can also divide them into groups. But essentially, what I can do too is go into the class role via downloading of the quiz statistics, and then you can see in this in this case they all knew the code word, but this student had no clue. He just stumbled onto the quiz and then, you know, wanted to get a sense of, you know, wanting to get credit. Whereas we have this case where a student, you can see it highlighted here, a student found out the code word from students who attended the morning session and logged into the evening quiz and put in the wrong code word. So obviously they're not going to get credit. I use them also for my exam sessions. This is again a clicker question that they can use. 120 students, you know, roughly 3/4 of the class is already on pace to get the full extra credit points, which is actually quite remarkable. 120, just to give you an idea, is about 60% of the class. Right? So I'm going to just to finish with a final quote, so to speak. This is my session for the second exam, which I gave last week. The code words were Black Lives Matter, and I've never had, you know, I've had a few highs in my 20+ career at USF, and this is frankly one of them, because I've never received that much applause, I guess, from students. This is from the chat group, and it goes on. You know, there was about 30 other comments. I'm just showing you a few of them, and I'm gonna finish with this one. It only goes downhill from here, so thank you.